Gatlinburg has been called the gateway to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, and not without reason. It is the biggest settlement town that is as close as you can get to the national park, and in fact, bears from the national park are known to show up here just about every day. The city is not very big, and it lies in a strip of land that's at the bottom of the valley in between ridges or mountains, and so it is easy to walk from one end to the other, and that's what I'm going to attempt to do. A bit of history. This city started as a logging town sometime in the 1850s. Not to say that there were no people prior to that period of time. It would be safe to assume that there were people, just not in significant numbers, for it to be commercially labeled or called a town, or at least a settlement with significant commerce going on, for it to be recognized. Initially, it was a logging town, and all the settlers that lived here were pretty much all involved in commercial activities related to logging. It wasn't until almost 100 years later, in 1934, that the Great Smoky Mountains National Park was opened, and with that, it transformed the logging village into a tourist gateway, because people wanted to come to the national park to enjoy the park and all the amenities that come with a national park. And for that, they had to stop at Gatlinburg to buy supplies, and over time to sell goods perhaps, and with time it became the commercial hub of tourism, shopping and food that it is today. Not too far from here is the city of Pigeon Forge and Sevierville, which both are considered gateways to the park as well, but not quite as close as this one. The difference lies primarily in the fact that Gatlinburg is a walkable town, whereas Pigeon Forge is one strip of a city that lies astride the road, and you cannot quite walk from one end to the other just because it's about 7 miles long. So Gatlinburg, walkable; Pigeon Forge, drivable. Not exactly the same, related but not identical. Pigeon Forge appears to focus on the glitzy Las Vegas style way of entertainment sports, targeting families, kids and such, whereas Gatlinburg is a bit laid back and appears to be more targeted towards those who want to pause for a bit before heading to the national park, or those who are just coming out of the park and need a bit of shopping or food before either staying or moving on to the glitzy Pigeon Forge. And so this is it. It's a pretty normal street with people doing their thing, shopping, sightseeing, eating, whatever it is that brings you to Gatlinburg, whatever brings families to places such as these in the middle of summer. I would say this city is pretty costly, but it is a good destination for families during summer, either heading to camp in the national park or simply to come here and enjoy the attractions that Gatlinburg has to offer. The city is walkable primarily for one major reason. It is flat. I would assume that took a lot of work to flatten the hills that must have lined this area prior to the construction of this major main street. There isn't any significant uphill walking or downhill for that matter anywhere that I have encountered, which makes it very friendly to those who are disabled. You can see people with wheelchairs, mothers and fathers pushing babies on strollers, and it makes for a very enjoyable, family-friendly city. As you can see, most of the attractions here target those with families, and the food scene is well suited for families as well. If you've ever been here, you know that this isn't quite the most adventurous of cities when it comes to cuisine, but there is enough diversity of restaurants, hotels, cafes, and everything in between to make it available to all tastes and palates. One thing that I have noticed of particular interest is that there are a lot of eateries that offer different pancakes. There is a very serious interest in pancakes in this city. I don't know if there is a particular reason for it or not. I do not know, but I am quite curious now. So if you know what the obsession is with pancakes and Gatlinburg, please do let me know, as I am in the dark and I am curious to find out. The Park Grill, it is for lunch. They have a salad bar from which I got broccoli, lettuce, mixed greens, cherry tomatoes, a sprinkling of cheese, bacon bits, raisins, honey mustard, and another dressing that I couldn't quite place. It was quite tasty. There is something about the texture of raisins, cherry tomatoes, greens, and the tangy, sweet taste of honey mustard. And of course, as you can see, I got a bit of carrots in there as well. I polished the plate because it was tasty and I was hungry. There is quite no meal such as lunch without bread, and these are run-of-the-mill rolls that are just normal, judging by the taste, texture, and whatnot. They came with butter. For the main course, hickory grilled moonshine chicken, a bit on the dry side, but it did come with a pineapple, which sort of enhanced the flavor a little bit. No complaints either way. I was hungry and it was tasty. For the side, a potato salad. By the time I got to it, I wasn't quite as hungry anymore, and so I didn't eat much of it. The chicken, I give it an 8 out of 10, just because it was a bit on the dry side. Other than that, no other complaints. And of course, you have desserts, which I chose to forego because there was no space in my belly for more food. And off into the streets I go to resume my walk. Of particular interest is what I have noticed, the architecture of the buildings here that are native to this area, not those that belong to chains like hotels and restaurants. They do have a unique architecture that I want to presume dates all the way back to the 1850s, but I could be wrong, because even if some of these establishments have been here for that long, they must have had renovations and updates. And so if you know what sort of architecture this is in Gatlinburg, please do let me know below. If you have never been here before, here are a few tips and things that will make your walking, your exploring, whatever it is that you choose to do, a lot easier. First and foremost, parking is expensive. Budget around $15 to $20 on parking for the day. For that reason, you can park a bit on the outside and use the trolley. There is a trolley that stops every few hundred, maybe a few thousand feet or so, and you can alight and walk to your desired place of interest. The trolley runs until late, and it starts running early in the morning as well. Secondly, traffic tends to be horrendous here. You're going to be bumper to bumper from one end of the city to the other, and it's going to take you a while to crawl through a very short distance, just because there are a lot of people, there are a lot of cars, there are a lot of pedestrians crossing the street, and the cars have to stop for pedestrians to cross. So you are better off walking. Find parking, get the trolley, and alight at your point of interest, or stop somewhere close enough so you can walk. The top attractions here are basically related to what you can do away from this main thoroughfare. There is Anarchista, of course, which is a park with a single rail coaster and a treetop skywalk. And there is the actual Gatlinburg Sky Park, which is home to the longest pedestrian suspension bridge in North America. And if you do your research, you can perhaps figure out which one you want to do and which one you don't want to do. There are all sorts of information online and in social media related to this. What you are unlikely to find in social media, however, is the little nooks and crooks of silence and peace that are hidden within the quiet gardens that line the riverfront. Now, you probably do not know this, but the entire city of Gatlinburg runs along beside a river, perhaps two, I am not quite sure, but today I am following this particular river in one direction, and I'll walk back along the main street on the way back. But it is very scenic, it is very quiet, there's not a whole lot of tourists or people here, and I suspect that those who are local to the city probably are the ones you're likely to come across in these parts of the city. The sound of the water reaches you from the sidewalk, and it just is very, very soothing in contrast to the chaos and the traffic of the main thoroughfare. Of course, it is lined with tourist related buildings, hotels, that sort of thing, but you can find a little quiet spot and sit down and just enjoy and watch the water. There are people fishing here, but when I sort of gauged the depth of the water, I estimate that it isn't anything more than just a few inches, and so I'm not sure exactly what sort of fish there are in these parts of the creek. As you can see, there is a lift that will lift you to the skywalk. On the other side of this ridge is Anarchista as well, with a similar setup. The little creek really is one of the more interesting parts of this city, with beautiful hanging flower pots and the water in the background, and the sound, the soothing, lulling sound of the water. Of course, that is merely my opinion, and as they say, opinions are as many as there are human beings. And so I continue my walk, and I'm heading away from the more popular parts of the city towards the least crowded area. As expected, there isn't much in the way of attractions in this end of the city. That's perhaps why it isn't as crowded, but it is a walkable distance, and as promised, I wanted to walk quite a bit, and it is flat, walkable, quiet. There is not a whole lot of people out here, so you can enjoy your walk peacefully and quietly, stopping wherever you need to look at whatever you find interesting for yourself. I'm on my way back to the very beginning, and I am going to stop somewhere and find something to eat because it is been hours. It is about 7, no, actually, it's 8 o'clock now. So the day is over for all intents and purposes, and you can see that the streets are empty. Howard's for Dinner, an establishment that was started in 1930 something, mid 30s, I think. They have a decent collection of alcoholic beverages for those who partake. I had a steak with mushrooms and broccoli. Steak medium well done, which was perhaps a bit too done for my liking, but it was tasty nonetheless. Mushrooms were the star of the meal, sauteed, I suppose, with a bit of butter of some kind. I'm not exactly sure what sort of butter sauce there was. Broccoli had a bit of butter as well. I am not exactly sure what kind. I'm assuming it's just regular butter with a bit of added seasoning. But they were both very, very tasty and cooked to perfection, with the broccoli just crunchy enough so that it is not too soft and not too cooked, whereas the mushrooms were cooked to a soft perfection. As you can see, I demolished the lot. And so the sun sets on Gatlinburg in these most bright of summer days. It is time to end my day. I will see you soon.